it to be.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So did you leave the morning? Have much of a choice in anything in our lives.
You're right, you probably have less of a choice than me if you work for the hotel. How's everything going?
Very well.
How'd that, you guys had a big event, didn't you?
The exhibit, the glass exhibit, yeah, it's done well. It hasn't done as well at night as we had hoped at the daytime. Even in these 95-degree days, we'll have 300 or 400 people.
I don't know, I just shut down the summertime if I was in your business. We need something.
We have the vote
I like your cut.
Melissa, is system on? Okay, I'm going to turn on the microphones now.
All right.
Okay.
Quiet on the set.
So, yeah. So we will call to order a September 11th, 2019 meeting of the Belmont Tourism Development Authority. I think it's appropriate that we begin the meeting with a moment of silence in memory of the victims of 9/11 and their families. Thank you. And thank you for being here. We have the agenda that Shelley sent to us late last week. We'll accept that. There's no changes. And then you also have that Shelley sent the minutes to the previous meeting for August 21st, 2019. Take a moment to review those.
Move the minutes be adopted.
A motion from Ted. Second. Mr. Turner. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. First item is so it's recorded here as a grant request from the Greater Gaston Development Corporation. I met with Pat Mumford and Vincent a couple of weeks ago and discussed this. This is a request that came from the City Council, so I think I'm going to get Adrian Miller, get the City Manager to come up here and kind of kick this off and describe kind of how this has flowed to our board. If you would do that.
Thank you, Mr. Hoffman. At the June 3rd City Council meeting, then Director of the GGDC, Mark Kramer, presented a request that the city fund year 4 of the Greater Gaston Development Corporation's GO campaign. Previously, the city had funded a 3-year commitment, or the city's portion of a 3-year campaign, and you'll hear a little bit more about the campaign and the results of that campaign. And so, due to the success of the campaign, the GGDC is requesting an extension of that campaign into year 4, and has been going back to all the funding partners for the 3-year campaign to seek funding for this year 4 of the campaign. So the City Council voted unanimously to approve funding for year 4 of the campaign, but also in their motion they requested that the GGDC come to this board and ask the Tourism Authority to pay for that funding, and the amount is $15,625 for the year 4 funding. And so because this is a promotional effort for Belmont, the City Council thought that funding through the Tourism Authority would be the most appropriate use of funding for this campaign. So this comes to you as a request, a unanimous request and recommendation for the City Council that the Tourism Authority fund this Go campaign for year 4. I think the previous 3-year funding commitment was split between the city and the Tourism Authority, but the City Council requested that you fund the full amount. If you have any questions about that kind of that process and how we got here, be happy to answer those.
Questions from the board?
No, I would just say, my recollection was, this was bandied about city council. I think Martha made the point that this seemed to be more of the travel and tourism alley than city council. And I think at that point they asked that it be brought to this board.
Okay.
Any input on why it's more of a tourism funding project now than it was before when it was split between the tourism board and the general fund?
Well, Martha made the motion and made the point, and I mean, I wouldn't elaborate on what her thinking was behind that, but council did seem to, I think it was unanimous to send it here, so I mean, I guess we agreed with her, but as far as perceptually what she was thinking, I couldn't tell you.
I think it's ultimately up to this board to decide if they want to do the full amount or another amount or none at all.
Yes, you're
Is that correct?
You can receive requests from the City Council, but they legally can't tell you what to do with their funding.
So,
Any other questions for Adrian? Sure he'll stick around.
Thank you, yes.
You do.
I will be here. Thank you.
Great. And now I'm going to call on Joel.
Hey.
To make the introduction here.
Thank you so much. Thanks for taking a few minutes. You guys are very fortunate that I only have here for like a few seconds, which will make the presentation a lot better. I wanted to remind you, okay, who's got control of the...
You did the right era.
You have all the power.
you put a post-it note on there for him.
Hey!
There you go.
Anyway, whatever, that's a long story. My technology, it's a long story. I personally wanted to remind you guys, I've been involved with the Go campaign from the start. Really, real quick, how we got started, through the GGDC and a lot of partners. If you remember, we had this Alliance for Growth group that came together in the community, 130 people all over the community. And one of the things that came out of that, we did a lot of research, partnered on what needed to happen to move our community forward. Belmont, Gastonia, the whole county, chambers, everybody. And one of the things that came out of that was we needed to market better Gaston County and our communities. And some of that came out of some Chamber of Commerce trips. Ted we went to Franklin, Tennessee, and Greenville, South Carolina, and we saw what they had done from a messaging standpoint of having one message that the entire community got behind and believed. We here, with our 13 municipalities and our county, seem to be splintered a lot of times in messaging. And so this was an effort, and if you'll see the first, especially in the first year, the first part of this, unify people in Gaston County with an appealing message built on agreed upon authentic truths that tap into their sense of pride and begins leading them towards an exciting, common purpose. And so the Go campaign, we went through 6 months of research trying to figure out how to present this, had a lot of partners bought in, rolled this plan out. We're in our 4th year now. We really started rolling it out, really did a lot of the research in the 5 years ago, and we've transformed this from an internal message where we wanted everyone, and when it comes to Belmont or Cherryville, to vision who we are the same. And it had to be an authentic. I think the biggest word for me in there is authentic. You can't do a marketing campaign if it's not real. And so that's how we got to these incredible communities between the river and Crowder's Mountain. And it's the best place to live and work and play in the region. And so we settled on that. Worked on the first year really hard with that internal messaging, and now going into the 4th year, we're really working more and more to directly project this message in the region to bring more business, better business, and more people here to live and work and play every day. And so the real thing now is to project that message to residents, businesses, and visitors in the region and beyond to show that Gaston County is a great place to live, work, and play. We really ask for your support, your continued support, as obviously Belmont right now is the cornerstone of the growth in Gaston County. And so we really need to continue to have your support and really ask for that, and thanks for your time. I'll turn it over to, I think, Pat.
Well, good morning. So I'm Patrick Mumford. I'm the new-ish Economic Development Greater Gaston Executive Director. So I've been on the job almost 3 months now. And I appreciate the time this morning. So Joel did a wonderful job of setting this up. What I want to do is run through just a little bit of detail for those of you that aren't familiar with the campaign. Look at what has been done in the past and how this really does relate to Belmont specifically, knowing that the context of our effort is really countywide. So first, we've had throughout this whole program 4 targeted audiences. And the idea here is to not only build awareness outside of Gaston County and the great opportunities here, but also help people locally see what's going on around them. Oftentimes, when you're in your own environment, you don't see what's changing and what's happening positively. And so we have some statistics from a survey I'll go into a little bit that really show a lot of local people needed to understand their surroundings better as well. So to that end, we focus on developers and businesses. We focus on the real estate community, so residential realtors, home buyers. It doesn't behoove us if people don't understand the current state of education in Gaston County or the current state of business opportunities in Gaston County. If they're hanging on to old notions, that's not going to serve us well. So with those 3, we've also added, as I mentioned, the Gaston residents, so they're just aware of their surroundings and they're updated on that. This is a public-private partnership, has been from the very beginning, and the statistics I'll show in a minute show that it's more of a 50-50 split now between the public and the private to fund this. But as we started, we had Gaston County's Travel and Tourism Group was a very big supporter, and then the towns that have listed and cities that have supported. And Belmont, as Manager Miller mentioned, has been in this from the very beginning. The private sector, so we solicit our member organizations to help with this, and we've had great response from local business leaders such as Joel and others to support this effort. So the contributions, the first 3 years combined is almost $1 million worth of contributions, public and private. And you see the split in those first 3 years was 75% public, 25% private. And as again, Manager Miller mentioned, Belmont's contribution each of those 3 years was the $15,625. So what's interesting to see as we move forward here in year 4 is that we're continuing to focus on these statistics. So Voci is a company that came in 2014 and did a survey of just getting an understanding of what are impressions of Gaston County. And they weren't terribly good. And you have a copy of more detail than this. But essentially, almost 3/4 of the respondents had either neutral or negative impression. And so I'm from Charlotte, and people ask me anecdotally, hey, what do you think people think about Gaston County if they're in Charlotte? And I said, well, that's an assumption they're thinking about Gaston County. And so it's just been sort of other side of the river. And what we need to do is help people see what really is on the other side of the river today. So that neutral to negative through efforts, and I want to be real sure you understand that this has been a collaborative effort. It isn't, the GO campaign has driven these numbers. We feel the GO campaign has helped, but a lot of people have been involved in this effort to raise awareness in Gaston County. But in 2018, Voci went out and did a resurvey, and we sort of flipped that dynamic of perception. Now we have people that are more 75% positive, neutral to positive versus neutral to negative. So that's a big swing, and that will begin to really help us exponentially as more people are aware of what's going on. So bottom line here, the last bullet, this top of mind connotation or thought, is how does Gaston County move from the historical vision of the textile world, and what does that mean for the future? So clearly, the economics have changed from the textile industry from decades ago. But there is a rich heritage with that. And so people are thinking about how do we aspire to move from that? How do we build on that strength? How do we see a future that doesn't dismiss the past, but also doesn't just sort of dwell in the past? And that's a great positive for this area. That's what a lot of other areas don't have. So this year 4, as I mentioned, the split is a little bit more balanced now with public and private. And Joel mentioned this. We are really narrowly tailoring our efforts. So before it was a bit of a shotgun approach, casting a wide net to build awareness. And what we're doing is we've learned from the first 3 years of where we can get more benefit from our resources if we target. And so I'm going to ask Vincent to come up in a little bit and get into more details of that social media component. And we're targeting not just by ourselves. So what we're doing is figuring out how we can target in concert with others. And so we also have brought our approach in-house. So we had a consulting firm for the first 3 years helping us with this. And we decided now that we have the broad construct, we can really drive this knowing what's on the ground more than somebody that's not here locally. And so Vincent spearheads the day-to-day activities. So we're leveraging, the point of that is we're leveraging these funds much more broadly than we had in the past. And we feel getting a better, sort of having more impact. So if you see the numbers now for year 4, the projected budget, it's really a 50-50 split of public and private, which I think sends a strong message that this is a collaborative effort.
Is that because of an increase in private spending, or is that because of a decrease in public spending?
It's probably a little bit of both. But so there was a large component in Gaston County travel and tourism that shifted, so we had to make up some of that. But the overall, the aggregate number is less than we've had it before, because we're not paying for the consultant.
And the same amount of dollars that we're spending on ad buys is the same as it was last year. That's something that we've been very intentional about, bringing things in-house so that the same markets we're occupying, there's really no difference between what we were doing last year. Doing a better job this year as well.
Except for the effectiveness of it. So, yeah, so we clearly understand that there's a destination marketing approach and that there's economic development marketing. So I again want to reiterate that we are focused Gaston County wide. So we're not coming here saying, oh my gosh, everything we're doing, let's show you exactly, everything we do supports Belmont specifically. However, I do want to make sure you know, a lot of that broad reach that we have does bring Belmont into it. It does bring exposure to the Belmont community. And as Joel mentioned, clearly this is where a lot of the activity is happening right now in Gaston County. So it plays a really important indirect role oftentimes, but that brings long-term benefit exposure. And the Gaston County Travel and Tourism Department continues to be a strong partner. You'll see they've adopted the logo, the Go logo. They have that with all their material. So that brand awareness continues to be strengthened with their support. So the real bottom line to this presentation is to answer what I'm assuming would be your question: why should we give you? What's the value? And we have done our best to be honest and thoughtful and intentional in how to answer that question, and not try to sell you something that isn't there. So we do feel that the exposure we have through our social media and our advertising channels is broader than maybe what you'd have without us. So as you see here, we're approaching 17,000 people that are an audience through our social media with Facebook and Instagram. And more importantly, is that the engagement rates of those people is higher than industry standards. So they're staying on the site, they're connecting to other things, they're investigating more, and that's a really important component. This second bullet around countywide bundles, what we mean there is when we do a story, place a story in the Business Journal or online somewhere that talks about new activities in the county, there may be a mention of like a wine bar in Belmont. the story may be about Gastonia or Gaston County having a broad array of wine bars, but then Belmont is mentioned, and then that can be retweeted. So there's a benefit, not directly intentional about specifically Belmont, but there is that benefit. And we're working to make sure that we're in concert with Visit Belmont, so that our media channels reinforce what they're putting out and vice versa. So we leverage each other, and we broaden the exposure, which we feel is important. And we spoke with Jim, as mentioned a couple weeks ago, and we know that you all are obligated to look at 50 miles and beyond radius that isn't about local, and our statistics show that 30% of our web traffic is from outside that 50-mile radius. So it allows more people to get more hits on what's happening in Belmont, and that is really the essence of a marketing campaign. So what I'd like to do is ask Vincent to give you, this will be real quick, but just show you some examples of the stories that get placed and how we feel that really is meaningful to your effort.
So I have the easy, quick part of the presentation, where essentially I get to show you pretty pictures of things that we do instead of getting to text-heavy slides. There is one text-heavy slide though, and it's this one, just to kind of show you the size and scope of our campaign and how we're reaching all of our audiences that drive growth prospects in Gaston County. And so there's the owned media side that revolves around our redesigned website, which is a little bit more engaging, features our Go blog, in which we have our writers constantly writing and putting out good content, not just on Gaston County, but content including many of Belmont's developments that are going on. And as Patrick had intimated before, but that bundling concept, it's a term I made up, is really, really important in terms of getting powerful pieces that resonate with our audiences to include a lot of Belmont content and content really from other municipalities. There's a social media strategy, which is pretty intensive work on a day-to-day basis. Our paid media strategies is where most of our marketing dollars are allocated into the Charlotte and Gaston County markets. Earned media is essentially public relations, so sending stories to the Gazette, Charlotte Agenda, Charlotte 5, business journals and things like that. And then you'll be hearing a lot about this in these coming weeks. Go Month in October. We've been planning this last couple months to put together a pretty robust campaign that gives folks, not in Gaston County and in Charlotte, but in the region, a unique opportunity to experience Gaston County in a more hands-on fashion. It's a campaign within a campaign, so to speak. Here are the pretty pictures now. This is an example of our Yahoo native content, and what we do is we leverage our blog content that our writers to push, we put marketing dollars behind this to push it out into our markets. You can see right there, how creative placemaking is transforming Gaston County. You can see an example of, pick a perfect patty. 13 burgers to try in Gaston County right now. That example right there is content that Visit Belmont uses on their platforms because it includes Belmont restaurants. Same goes for paid social media. We find that these pieces really resonates with our audience, or pieces resonate with our audiences. And you can see, in terms of CPM, it's a technical term in terms of the cost to reach 1,000 people. We've been very, very deliberate in using tactics that reach a broad audience and get more bang for our buck. And so when we prioritize content being the king, you can spend less dollars because people are going to resonate with that message regardless of how they're consuming it. And so you can see year 4 our CPM is lower than year 3. This is another example of us prioritizing content using our public relations and blog team and working collaboratively with them and all of our municipal partners and private sector partners to get good stories out on Gaston County and Belmont specifically. These are other examples of leveraging good stories out there, whether it's stories that we're writing or stories that the Charlotte Business Journal is publishing, or maybe what other people in the community, like the Belmont Bells Instagram account, is doing. So we really kind of keep a good pulse on who's doing what, so that we can make sure we're publishing the most relevant content as soon as it comes out in a way that people respond to it. And then there's our other advertising efforts, which features billboards. You might notice southbound I-85. I call it the gateway to Gaston County. Right when you cross the river, there's the welcome to home Gaston County message. Some people during rush hour might see that a little bit longer than most people, but we count that as a good thing. It's an example of another paid media tactic with the Charlotte Business Journal. We've really strategically placed our dollars to get the most amount of impressions and the most good news about Gaston County and Belmont out there. And this is the last slide, just to show you how we're tracking just on one of our efforts. In terms of the goals that we've set across all efforts, we're going above and beyond the goals that we set. They were pretty aggressively set at the beginning of the year, which our steering committee signed off on. This is just an example of how we're monitoring all of our progress and being good fiduciaries, I guess, so to speak, of the money that we've received, and being responsible partners to spend the money that we're receiving from all of our partners in a wise way, and continuing the progress that we're continuing to monitor that. With that, my side of the presentation is done. I'd like to open up the floor with questions to Patrick and Joel, and not me. Thank you. I did it.
Questions from the board?
I got, when this group, before my time, used to have a billboard on 85, how much was that?
I don't recall.
It's about $1,500 a month.
Yeah,
roughly.
it should be 1,500, 2,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's about 22.
On 85?
Yeah. 85 is a little bit more expensive, but it's about 22, including production fees for that billboard.
We were at 15, and they were getting ready to go up in cost at that time.
We had a
It's
really
also-
good deal with, is it Fairway?
Fairway, I believe you.
And then when that company was bought, the price went way up, and we no longer had a billboard.
You feel the pain. I know the pain.
That's the way I recall it.
And it's also local election season, and prices tend to go up then.
As a matter of fact, part of dropping that billboard cost was to help fund that first leg of the Go campaign.
What's the request? How much?
$15,625, is that right?
Correct, which is consistent with the first 3 years of annual participation.
Oh, first year more.
First year was a little bit more, is about 30% more than that, just to fund the content creation and concepting of the campaign, and then it was reduced the last 2 years.
Did you say in your presentation that this year 4, you're going to be focusing more beyond Gaston County? Your outreach is going to be a little bit farther?
So the outreach, about 30% of that outreach is beyond that 50-mile radius. So within a little bit closer to the 50-mile is the Charlotte region. So we really want people outside of Gaston County to see the realities of Gaston, and a lot of this energy that you all are feeling from Charlotte, we want to make sure that people in Charlotte understand what's happening here. So we're very targeted in certain parts of Charlotte, so it's not all of Charlotte, but that, and to businesses. So how does that influence people beyond friends, neighbors, family that want to come check out Belmont or Gaston County? We don't know, but the idea is to really drive that awareness further and further out to cast a wider net.
And an additional thing, and this is kind of getting into any gritty details, is, for example, whenever we publish like the Nobel Dog Bar that's coming out, or that was announced just a couple months ago, right? When you look at the analytics on that, when we published that story, we didn't write it, but when we published that Gazette story, there are other constituencies across the region that follow us, and when they share it, it's just kind of a viral effect. Actually, 40% of our traffic is viral traffic, meaning the algorithm prioritizes spreading that good news outside Gaston County and Charlotte. So while we target that, much of that news goes well beyond that as well.
Just a point of clarification, when I met with them a couple of weeks ago, I explained that we are bound by statute to assure that our dollars are spent to promote Belmont to tourists. And the definition by the state of North Carolina's terms is somebody that travels more than 50 miles. I also clarified that we'll advertise in Charlotte 5 or the agenda because that is reaching other people as well as people in the Charlotte market, or people beyond the 50-mile radius as well as in the Charlotte market. We're able to promote the bridal business to local people because those brides will then in turn have guests that stay at the Hampton. So, but we are bound by law to assure that the dollars we spend are spent to promote tourism.
And sort of following up on that, Jim, the Gas and Outside campaign is both an economic development focus and a tourism focus, right?
If you can even make a distinction between the two. So we really see that they're all one and the same. And we know that weekend traffic in hotels typically is less than during the week. And so when we can get emphasis around weekend activities like weddings, and we reinforce that again drives where there's a need. So we're not trying to duplicate, replicate, we're trying to make sure that we hit points that need some additional support.
Was this in the budget?
No. And
I am really happy to hear that you're bringing the consultant work that's taken place the last 3 years in-house, and that's going to save money that you'll be able to apply strategically for the benefit of Gaston County, I think, and I really appreciate that.
You mentioned in the presentation that you have 17,000 followers on social media, and that's through these two channels, Facebook and Instagram. Those are your only two channels.
Do we have the money in the budget?
We have money in the fund balance, and we said, we suspected that they were going to come to us at the time, but I think it was during we approved the budget during the transition between executive directors, and we didn't really know how much that money would be, how much that would be. But we do have something more than $70,000 in our fund balance.
It's just not sustainable to take it all from there.
No.
What's the timeline on the hotel, Adrian?
It's under construction now. Assuming it's a year and a half to go out.
Is that how long it takes?
I'd say 2 years from now, to get it done, which should double your budget. Once it's full and
Do you feel like it'll double our budget as well?
It should.
I think this is important, however you guys want to pay for it.
Well, I think-
It's up to you guys, but I want to fund it one way or another.
I mean, for myself, I think this aligns with what our mission is as a travel and tourism board. That said, I would have, I guess, a point of order to ask the chair for, I guess, a ruling on this. Ryan and myself are both city councilmen. Ryan and myself both voted with the majority to send this to this board. Does that present any kind of conflict of interest for us to vote?
I don't like the conflict.
That's
That's
part of the checks and balances, and the city council appoints us.
What do you think? What do you think, Ted? What do you think? How do you think we should handle this?
I'd be a lot more comfortable with it if it was a split between the general fund for economic development and the tourism board for tourism, as it was in the first 3 years, right?
Correct.
What do you think, Jim? You agree with that?
I have concerns about us taking it all out of our fund balance. So, I did want to clarify, this request is for 2018. And would you suggest that you would come back to us? I mean, this request is for 2019. Would you suggest you're going to come back, because your fiscal year ends December 31st?
Correct.
would you come back in 2020 and ask for another $15,000?
So we're asking ourselves that same question, so if I might elaborate a little bit. So this campaign is in year 4, and what we want to do at the end of this year is really assess, is this the right way to continue moving forward? Have we moved to a point where we need to leverage this and look differently at how to market and raise awareness in Gaston County? So our thought today is that we'll be right back January 1st asking you for $15,625 to keep doing what we're doing. And we'll need that conversation with you all to see how might we really approach this in a manner that's befitting of a 5th year. Right? Campaigns usually don't last this long, and we have to assess what we've learned, what's the impact that we've had, what is the world telling us we need to do going forward, because it's vastly different today than it was 5 years ago. Will Belmont still be at the core of a lot of the activity? Absolutely. Will it be important to continue this partnership? Absolutely. What does that look like? I don't know yet. But my sense is generally yes, there would be a request, provided we all agree that that request supports something that makes sense moving forward. I think it's really time to understand what does Gaston Outside mean, and could it be restructured to be more effective? When we don't have those answers yet.
Well, I think, if I could, we've really done that every year. You know, I want to, and even in the, after the first year, you know, after we felt like we called the bus, you know, that it was working, we really stepped back and said, okay, what's good, bad, and different. And we're going to have a 5th year. It's just exactly what that looks like. Just say, yes, we're going 15 again next year. We're not sure. I think that's probably the framework at this point. Is that? Today, I would say yes, but I think we need to understand we're going to be really assessing the next level of outcomes.
That.
Just to clarify for me, just for a second, so the 4th year is
2019.
2019 between now and the end of this year?
Correct.
The 5th year would be 2020?
2020, correct.
What I would say to the board is I think we've had multiple conversations. I think, Ted, I think you've made this comment, I have too, is that the money in the fund balance is not doing us any good. I mean, the goal is to spend the money on travel and tourism and not to sit and hold the money. Now, with that in mind, I mean, we've heard the presentation and we've debated it somewhat. I'm going to go ahead and put forward a motion that we go ahead and fund the request.
That was a motion. Richard, did you second?
Any discussion?
Motions, I'm supposed to say, any discussion?
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to seem negative in any way, and I think I might have seemed negative a minute ago. I wasn't. That was just a question, and it's still a concern. I fully agree that leveraging this larger amount of money countywide is good for Belmont, and Belmont should definitely do this. My only question was, should we split it with the general fund? Because we get much more bang for our buck by being a part of this countywide GO campaign and leveraging the private money and the other public money that comes from all the other communities in the county. So I'm highly in favor of participating in this. I just want to make that clear.
Any other questions? Hearing none, all in favor? Aye. All opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
And I'll be in touch with how we can make that work logistically. Okay.
Thanks. One other comment. Thank y'all so much for all the support, but as I was sitting here thinking too, probably ought to investigate more ways too that we can share the logos and overlap the logos, because then that really expands the outreach. And we had a couple meetings 60 days ago where through asking some simple questions we realized we weren't doing some simple things. You know, it was amazing some of the things that we just assumed were happening. And so any kind of outreach, maybe through Adrian or whatever, through the staff to get some of that done, we just want to make sure we open that door continually.
And we do have the Gaston Outside logo on our website, and we do utilize it.
I know you are, I'm not, but we need to continue We were in a meeting and I asked a simple question, or somebody else did, about the conference center electronic billboard. And we went, oh my God, it's never been on there. And that afternoon, it was on there. And every day since then, it's been on there. But we didn't connect that simple dot, which was, it was easy. And so I think maybe that's the point on that. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We'll keep reaching out.
Thank you.
Good to see you.
Appreciate all you do, babe.
I should have skipped you. Thanks, guys.
I appreciate you.
Patrick has to shake hands.
Probably needed that.
Good to see you guys. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you, what you do.
It's my first nice to meet you.
Thank you. So we do have our financial report included in your packet. Got into this a little bit. There are only expenditures in here, and I will say the only thing that I see that is out of budget is we are now $600. If you go to page 8, we are $600 over budget in the grant category. That grant that we approved last month put us a little bit over budget. So depending on how revenues look, that may or may not have to come out of the fund balance too, or go through some other adjustment to the budget. So everything else appears to be in order and as the board has approved. The county is migrating to a new financial system, so we have not had a revenue report for this entire fiscal year. So I asked Ashley to give us an update about how sales are trending at the Hampton Inn so we can get an idea of how our revenues are trending.
Yeah, so for June, we had about $7,700. July, it was $7,100. And then August, we were $7,500.
So that seems to me to be just a little short of where we were.
Yeah, I think we were coming in like last year, I want to say it was around $9,000 a month.
What's driving that?
What has taken away from our business is the other hotels that are opening up.
The Hilton Garden Inn.
Yeah,
namely.
Hilton Garden Inn and, yeah.
So, but we did budget a little bit less, so that's an average of $7,100.
Right.
So we would be about 15,000 short if you went on that trend. And those are, what were those, June?
June, July, and August.
And those are for you average months, good months? Average months?
Yeah, I'd say average.
Okay. So
When's the RNC? Is that happening? Is that a real
It
thing?
is.
it's a year from now.
Don't you think they'd had that hotel built before then, if they could?
I don't know if
Yeah, I don't
They
know.
can't- you can't
I'd be
guarantee it.
pushing it, but, yeah,
The RNC is going to book hotels.
they've already booked hotels.
They booked them, and then they're going to assign people to those in
Yeah.
March.
Yeah.
So the delegations that'll be at your hotel will be known in March or April. So, and they wouldn't be able to do that.
I would think we'd have a higher occupancy rate during that time period, or?
Right, the rate is higher, so in turn,
But it's next fiscal year.
right.
The next fiscal year, the Home 2 would open as well. So,
Well, if we don't have enough money or we don't like this program next time, we can just kick it back to city council and tell them to do it if they want to do it, right?
we can.
Be my impression.
Or at least half of it.
Yeah. I think it's fine that we take it this time, but we have to,
I think it's the right thing to do.
it's a larger chunk of our budget certainly, so we
Yeah, I
just
mean,
got to keep an eye on it,
it
make
is-
sure we can sustain it.
It's 15% of our budget, so I think we need to get 15% of the result. So,
I think we are. I didn't want to say this while you're here, but, a lot of the content that I'm seeing out there, they're writing.
right.
And a lot of the content we have coming out of Visit Belmont, just like being shared or press releases and things like that, but they're like generating content about the old mills and the winery, like the places. So that adds a different flavor to it for me, which I appreciate. So And then with the billboards and stuff, I feel like it lines up. So glad we're doing it.
I'm really glad they're taking it in-house, because I really felt like they were doing the work in-house, and somebody in Greenville, South Carolina was getting paid for it.
Yeah.
But I'm not on the inside of that, so I don't know that.
It wouldn't have gotten to where it was without the group out of Greenville, but I think it transitioned pretty nicely whenever, because Vincent hasn't been there that long, and what was her name? Who was there before her? She was only working part-time, and she wasn't a writer or anything. So as she retired, he came. I think all the pieces kind of fell in place to do it now.
Tremendous young man.
Any other comments about our financial report? Questions? Hopefully we will have an official revenue report at next month's meeting, so we can really get an idea of how we're doing. That is not all of the revenue that we receive. We do receive some money from the Airbnbs and from some other hotels that happen to be located here. So I remain hopeful that we can, at least inch closer to that $100,000 revenue budget, which is what we budgeted for. So, and maybe we can drive some more tenants to the hotel as well. So. Other business. I wanted to make sure that we included in the packet what we provided in print last time, so that you have a record of it that you can store on your computer. Belmont Blooms has really bloomed. We've met two times now as a committee, or 3 times now as a committee. 3 or 4 times as a committee. We have another meeting on September 20th, next Thursday or Friday, I believe it is. But you have a list of the 15 plus events that are occurring during that time period. The garden is added to events. The city has really adjusted their schedule, or their schedule of events, and it's just really looking like a good event. That is a preview of the logo on the top of the report there. We are still working on that logo, and I guess we'll take a look at it at our next meeting, but there are some edits being made to that. Did you have anything you wanted to add, Phil?
That's the second, I think, rendering, and we've asked for one more, but we're kind of providing some feedback and trying to find a little more.
And the city has undertaken that as well. And then at our last meeting as well, the Lyerly Agency presented kind of the plan, or at a previous meeting, the plan to promote Belmont Blooms. So, anything else?
We're kicking off the bulb sales and everything like next month, right?
So the bulb sale, I'm doing a bulb sale begins during our plant sale, our fall plant sale on October 12th. And then I'll be selling bulbs from that point forward in the garden store, at least through the holiday. And we will have a sign there that says Belmont Blooms and the dates, that kind of thing, and what the event is. So we'll start promoting it through that.
Do we have a target date for when this is going to go public, and press release, press conference, other announcements about particularly the fall?
We don't, but we can.
Maybe we'll discuss that. We'll put it on our
agenda. Good question.
If we're talking about October, it's almost here.
Yeah.
Is there any tie-in to the downtown Botanical Gardens bulb sale? Is there going to be any opportunity to do some other things besides bulb sale?
We actually met with the young lady and gentleman from the gardens who came out.
Jeff, can't pronounce his last name, our director of horticulture.
Yeah, so the horticulture people came and met with myself and Jamie Campbell and Roger, who does our beds. And so we've actually put in our order of bulbs. And so we're actually going to do some swapping. And they're going to give us some of theirs that they've ordered. We're going to give some so that we have a blend. So if anyone were to come downtown or then go to the gardens, vice versa, they're going to kind of see the same flowers and see the same colors. So it'll be a seamless transit. So they actually know that it's
But actually, you led me to a pretty good idea, I think. When that work starts is maybe an appropriate time to do an announcement. When the planning start downtown. Yeah, because that'll happen in October, November, right? So,
It seemed like it would be a good opportunity to leverage the public as well as just planters downtown. People that, preparing their own gardens, their front yards, and with Keep Belmont Beautiful folks and the Flower Power Volunteer Brigade. Seems like you would want to have some sort of a downtown workshop, seminar, or something, have the gentleman from the garden come and do a little workshop on planting bulbs now to get ready for Belmont Blooms next spring, whether it's here or somewhere else. And invite the public to come.
And we may actually have some of those things in the works for the garden. So, just not sure.
So we would need to roll out the PR campaign.
Yeah.
And in order to engage other people to leverage the power of Belmont Blooms.
And we are. We've got, the committee has taken different organizations that we're reaching out to personally so they understand what it is, what this event is. So
I will take it to the Rotary Club today.
And we'd love to present to the Rotary Club.
So,
Ted, I actually met with Allison at the Rotary Club. We actually have a whole list, like Jim said, and we each identified who our point of contact would be. And so I actually walked in and met with Allison, gave her a little bit of information, and then asked how the Rotary Club could participate or be involved if they were. We've been reaching out to all organizations.
So the Belmont Blooms things, is that this schedule here? And so what you guys are talking about now is in the fall, talking about the bulbs announcement?
Yeah, so you plant bulbs for blooming in the spring, in the fall.
Okay.
So you plant those between October and December. So the activities don't occur during the fall. They bloom in the spring, and that's when the events occur.
Okay.
So,
thanks.
I mean, especially all these residences, particularly the ones close to downtown. We're going to have a Belmont Blooms Festival downtown. I think the folks up North Main Street, South Main Street, all around Belmont, really.
Be great.
Ought to be participating and getting out there and planting some bulbs in October and November so that they can feel like they're part of the parade.
Where's the parade going to happen at?
Down Main Street. There'll be a walk nighttime parade.
Cool.
Martin lights.
We'll leave the Christmas lights up long enough to help light up Main Street in March.
Well, we'll still have lights on the buildings, but we want the lights to it'll be part of the parade.
It will be dark by 8 o'clock in March. It'll be dark by 8 o'clock in March, I think.
Are we going to have
the idea is to use lighted items and that sort of thing as part
glow
of the parade.
sticks and stuff? Is there going to be a Belmont Bloom princess or anything like that?
So, we didn't.
I don't want to ruin any surprises.
Yeah, so that was actually what I was going to say next. We got an email that Ramona Holloway had agreed to be our spokesperson from the link. She's agreed to be our spokesperson and the Grand Marshal of the parade.
Cool. Who's putting the parade together?
Phil.
You'll find out next Thursday at our ministry board, our DVDA board meeting.
So, what we have to do is to engage the public in doing those and have prizes and that sort of thing.
And we're going to hold some, we're talking about having a workshop to kind of ideas on how to build some clubs. Involve some schools and different organizations.
So I have a blueprint for how you do a parade that they use in Gastonia for the Christmas parade every year. It's been going on for 70 years. And so they just adjust what went wrong and what worked from the year before. And Ted's got a lot of...
Ted's got some
training.
We're not that sophisticated.
No, it's a lot more than you bargained for, so you guys might want to take a look at that document. It's
we started creating some guidelines.
And you've got experience doing this from your previous life as well, right?
Well, not fully leaning on myself, but working with an arts organization that did this.
And we do intend to take a look at the Mount Holly Lantern Festival, which is October 26th. I understand it's really blossomed to about 500 participants from 100 last year. So So we're going to take a look at that as well.
That could be emulated in some ways, applied to flowers.
Exactly.
Lighted flower.
And we've already got some resources in the garden that we may be able to utilize too.
We talked about it a lot.
Good.
Don't want to spoil the surprise completely.
Any other questions?
I've always been intrigued by the possibility of doing street art in Belmont. And we kicked around ideas for years about what would it be. It would have to be, by street art, I'm talking about, I don't know if anybody ever goes to Hendersonville to their festivals, they always have bears or something painted in front of the stores, things like that. I always thought it would have to be related to the garden in some way. It would have to be butterflies or flowers or something.
So
I don't know, it's probably not appropriate to start thinking about that at this stage, but it's something to keep in mind. If Belmont Blooms, it could be more than...
Yes, some of the ideas that we've started working on is some sort of ephemeral kind of art in Stowe Park that would be lit, that's, maybe a fence or something that people, and you have...
The flowers.
Yeah.
Create a scenery.
Yeah, right, that's a possibility. We intend on creating a vignette up here in front of your webcam where people can pose for a selfie or in front of the webcam. That would be a piece of art that is designed like a flower bed.
One of our AR workshop is called where it is going to be spirit.
Nice. Great.
So,
you're way ahead of me.
And then, we've talked just briefly about doing another, kind of community art project. So I don't know how far along those ideas are, so can't really say much more about that, but there may be another piece of, in conjunction with the Garibaldi Fest, I think is the contest that we were talking about that on. So, yeah.
Excellent. I'm getting excited.
At our last meeting, the board asked me to look into the fact that the Holiday Inn, the Mount Holly Tourism Development Authority had not been listing the Hampton Inn on its website as we had agreed to list the Holiday Inn Express on our website, kind of a mutually beneficial exchange. But indeed, the Holiday Inn Express is not, or the Hampton Inn is not on the Mount Holly website. So I reached out to the city manager, who put me in touch with Michael Holdenrid. I don't know if anybody knows him, insurance guy in Mount Holly, who is just taking over as chair of the Mount Holly Tourism Development Authority. So he was going to look into it and see if they could do that. He didn't see any problem about doing that kind of mutually beneficial sort of thing on each of our websites, but he was going to look into that, make sure they could do it. So I hope that'll be taken care of in the next couple of weeks, and that the Hampton Inn will be up on their website. I've also invited to meet with him or have a conversation, perhaps have him come to this meeting, and maybe get some sort of partnership going with the Mount Holly TDA, since it appears to be under new leadership. So, I think that can be a beneficial thing for both organizations, both of our communities. So.
Let me ask you about that, Jim, because I was just thinking when you mentioned that, I think, Ted, you might be the only person here than myself remembers, we had a joint meeting with them, and we were looking for things to partner on. Did we just not pursue that, or was there something that...
Yeah, we did pursue it. There was a number of changes that that occurred on that board that just prohibited just any sort of action. I mean, essentially I think that board fell into inactivity. As far as what I can see.
Okay.
So.
But it's reconstituted.
It seems like it might be, yes.
Because I think there might be, regional opportunities for us to partner on something.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So maybe when he gets his feet on the ground, he can come and maybe present to this board, or we can go and present to his board. So.
All for that. Great.
Okay.
And lastly, if you will indulge me, the Farm to Fork event, which this board approved supporting it at its last meeting, has invited us to have a table at the Farm to Fork event at the Garden on October 6th. I was a little bit with Phil and Melissa about that. If the Hampton Inn wanted to give us some materials, that kind of thing, if we can find somebody to man the table, we will. If you guys wanted to come do that, there'll be about 600 people at the Farm to Fork event at the Garden from it's 4 to 7 or 7:30, something like that. If somebody wanted to work a table, I'm working the event, so I could have an event, have a table set up with materials, but I just can't man the table during the entire event. So
They call it the sponsorship table.
it is we are a sponsor of Farm to Fork.
So, yeah, it'd be a great opportunity to put materials out downtown
What-
Belmont Hotel.
What's the date?
October 6th.
Okay.
And that is prior to our next meeting, so I will at least, I mean, if you guys are interested in being out there, that's fine, but if you just want to give me some materials or something like that too, I'd be glad to have those. So,
I mean, I'll check my schedule. If I'm free, I can help you out.
okay, great.
As long as that Farm to Fork makes it to our booth, right?
Do you know if they're gonna have to skirt tables, or it's just a table we have to skirt ourselves, or do you, or
I imagine they are providing a skirted table, but if not, I can manage that. Unless you have something that you wanted to skirt it with. If you have a logo.
I was just asking, I didn't,
Yeah.
we need to be prepared for that,
Do you have a logo table cover?
so. The city does, but I don't.
So, I can manage it if not.
I have sheets.
But we have regular different on tablecloths, but not the logo.
I have linens too, so. But I imagine she is going to provide a covered table for us. So,
Is there food involved?
there can be. I think we actually get some tickets to this event. Is anybody interested in attending the event?
I would be.
Well, you're working now.
Well, I'm not going to work though. I will be willing to shift gears.
Is this the thing that was in the newspaper over the weekend?
Probably.
I'll let you know.
I will not take
Okay.
that.
It's my birthday
I think we
weekend.
get 4 tickets or something like that, so I'll check that out and make sure, so, and I'll send an email to the board.
I'm throwing a party for you that Saturday.
That is my birthday. Do I get to pick up garbage again? 'Cause that's what I do most on my birthdays.
It is.
That's right, Oktoberfest.
I know we're throwing a party for you.
Yeah, well, it's funny you're having Oktoberfest at the park hours after they clean up the park.
Any business to come before the board, any other business to come before the board? On that note.
We adjourn.
Thank you, we'll stand adjourned.
So what's going on with Oktoberfest? What kind of bands do you have coming?
We have 3 bands.
It's saying
The vendors, I think the vendors are performed last year.
See?
That's just not
this is,
Are they going to be here for?
Alan, yeah,
Anything else for you?
for your dinner.
on October 10th or something?
And we'll be bringing our
Oh, okay. Good, I didn't know that. I guess I knew Elena was talking with you. It's a pretty big deal, she hadn't been there.
Her daughter's coming too, and her daughter's husband, but they're not coming to the event. She's gonna be.
She's coming to the event herself. Wow. Well, she won't be eating by herself.
I'm sure not. What I did ask Elena is